Hello and welcome to Tokyo 2020 Rewind. It's the second day of the Tokyo Olympics anyway, and hope well, so far so good. How's it been for you? If you're watching us for the first time, don't forget to subscribe. My name is Wale, and I'll be bringing you this special edition, special Olympics edition of Tokyo 2020. So all we're going to be doing is actually just rewinding and reviewing everything that's happened the day, okay, on the day, and obviously having a look, a sneak preview into what is going to be happening the next day. Okay, so my name again is Wale, and thank you for joining us today. Well, if you're a Nigerian fan to start with, I think probably the greatest news, the best news, or rather bad news to come out of the Olympics today would be the Tigers. That's the basketball, Nigerian basketball Olympic team, losing to the Aussies, to the Australian team. Well, it's not so much of a bad news because it's just game one of the group stages. So the next game is going to be the Tigers. That's the Nigerian Olympic basketball team playing against the Germans. And the other big news to actually come out of the basketball events of the Olympics would be was the loss of Team USA to the French team. That was about the first time in 7 games that the Team USA are going to lose to a French team. And that was really very surprising. I mean, an American team that's filled with NBA superstars, megastars, I dare say, losing to the French, and what an exciting game that was, really. Well, both the Team USA and the Nigerian the Tigers actually seated in the top four of the teams to watch out for in the Olympics this season, or this Tokyo 2020. So, well, what do we expect from those two teams later in the group stages? Stick with us, and obviously we'll be giving you feedback on that. At some point in this program, we'll be talking to a friend, a colleague, and a basketball expert all the way from the United States. We're going to be talking about the defeat of Team USA. I'm talking about Leslie Koroma. Leslie is going to be joining us at some point in this program today. I will be talking about Team USA defeat to France, and obviously we're talking about the Tigers defeat to Australia. But today, I guess Leslie's here. Actually, Leslie's just joined us, so we're still going to be talking about that. Leslie is joining us from the USA, and also joining me on this program today, I have another friend, and who is new to a program. His name is Naya Shoumi. Naya is a boxing guru, so we're going to be talking about boxing. I mean, Africa's not had is really so good so far in boxing tournament, because this today I think we just had one victory in the boxing event. I think in the lightweight. We're going to be talking about that today. Naya is going to be joining me. We're going to be talking boxing. We're also going to be talking about why come Nigeria didn't make it through to the boxing tournament, boxing event of the Tokyo 2020, and who else we should be looking forward to seeing in this boxing event. So that's our package for today. And we're also going to be looking into some other sports, some other events that's taking place earlier the day, and obviously we will be looking a little bit about the opening ceremony of the Olympics and what you guys think about these Olympics. As some people have, Deputy Prime Minister of Japan once said it's a cursed Olympics, obviously because of the COVID and all. Some of other people have called it a ghost Olympics because we haven't got fans out there cheering all these Olympians. What do you think? Well, I am going to bring in first and foremost Naya. Naya, thank you for joining us. Have a very good evening to you where you are. Thank you for joining us today. I know we're going to be talking quite a lot about boxing today, but let me first ask you this, Naya. What's your opinion of these Olympics? People, of course, they've called it curse, they call it ghost, they've called it all sorts of names, but they also had a very brilliant opening ceremony That was actually the height of it was now the Osaka lighting the game's torch in a very spectacular manner. So, what do you think so far about this Olympics now?
Hi, Wally. Thanks for having me. To be honest with you, I mean, like the way I look at it, you need sports just like you need business, and sports really is an industry. So
Mm,
whether there's a war going, I mean, the only times we've not had Olympics is during the war. So I know we've had a pandemic, but definitely the game should go on regardless
mhm,
of politics. So I mean, and that's where sports really comes in, and it's neutral. And I think we need this breath of fresh air during this particular time. I mean, everything has been pretty much very quiet for a whole year, and this is the only thing we're looking to right now. So, for me, and obviously, we're not having that much follow because there hasn't been that much publicity because of everything that's been going on. But I think this kind of brings back that breath of fresh air, gives us, looking at things and just even, for example, Nigeria being at the opening ceremony and the different things. It's almost like it's like somebody having an accident and learning how to walk again. So you're just learning to get
mm.
excited again. The Tigers are doing things. So they actually just bringing us back into being normal again. So I'm looking forward to the games.
Looking forward to games. Tell me now. We all know the Japanese and technology and all that, and the opening ceremony was actually really spectacular. We saw some wonderful um, show put on by the Japanese. Um, what impressed you most about that opening ceremony, if I may ask?
Well, for me, I just really just loved seeing everybody just turn out. So it was just really for me. I was just looking at the different countries. There's a
Mm.
particular female boxer from Morocco who I've been following because she's in the weight class of one of my female boxers in Nigeria who I mentor. So I've been following her pretty close, and I just wished her well, going to the Olympics. And I saw one of her photographs at the opening thing at in Tokyo. So I sent her a message saying, "Wow, you look like an air hostess." I mean, she's a boxer and she just looked really good. I was like, you look like an air hostess. So just really looking at everybody. I mean, seeing the USA team, decked out team, Polo Ralph Lauren, yeah, it was Ralph Lauren. Seeing the UK team. So I just liked that whole. Seeing Nigeria dressed up in white. That whole thing. I was just really watching their mood and just watching how they carry themselves. And that's been it for me, really. Just watching how everybody's kind of showcased their culture. I mean, I was surprised with the way the Americans were dressed. They're just looking very relaxed and looking calm. And like I said, for
Mm,
me, it's like, obviously at the games, you're looking at the best in the whole world at this particular time, right? And
mhm.
so I'm just looking at them. I'm looking at them how they're faring after this whole 1 year episode. I'm using that to just kind of analyze and just weigh up the competition. So that's been the interesting bits for me.
And there's no way we can talk about the Olympics without talking about COVID. I know you mentioned it. This is more like a breath of fresh air. We've had it very rough with the pandemic. The Olympic was supposed to be hosted last year, been pushed to this year. Sports generally have been affected. Is that is this COVID really going to affect the performance of all these competitors, all the athletes in the Olympics? Do you think so?
No, I don't because a lot of these guys are very professional. I mean, there's a girl I can't remember her name now, a female boxer. She's in the games and she's a welterweight. I remember her name in a minute. And they actually she had a situation where I think she said she was at home and one day she just heard her neighbors knocking on the door. There was a fire, and she had to come out and all her belongings got burnt and everything like that. She wasn't going
Wow.
to the Olympics. She wasn't going to the Olympics at that time, and then she got a call to train for the Olympics. And she said at that point she was at her lowest point, but she just managed to
Wow.
train. So really, for all these guys, I just think they're so honed in, they're professionals, and the whole COVID fiasco, there's so much going on in their lives, even more than COVID, and they can put all these things aside to compete, and that's what makes them professionals. So I don't think it's going to affect their performance at all. To be honest, I don't think so.
Mm,
I mean, there's
mm.
a Nigerian girl who the wrestler, what's her name again? Odu,
What did you blessing?
no, the girl going for gold, in the wrestling girl, the Nigerian girl, Oduayo.
O'Dwyer, yes, O'Dwyer, yeah.
I mean, I love that girl. Her mentality, and she reminds me of Mike Tyson, and she's
Mm,
not even she's just so focused on everything, and that's the kind of inspiration I'm looking from all these guys. I just know they're very professional and they can put all these things to the side and just and perform on the night.
And we all know the usual suspects when it comes to the medal table will always be the USA's, the Chinese, the Russian Olympic Committee, or whatever you want to call them now, the GBs. Don't discard the Japanese. What's your outlook like? What would you think will be top there at the end of the Olympics itself?
Okay, so I'm going to use boxing as a yardstick. I mean, because that's where I grew up. So, talking about, especially when you get involved with fighters. I mean, like me now, I'm so emotional when it comes to. That's why I like to stay neutral, because when you become emotional with boxers, you're not thinking straight anymore. Whether the guy is good or not good, you just think he's going to win. Yeah. But I mean, from the first round of boxing and the second round of boxing, you begin to see that the elite fighters are a particular race, a particular nation. And that's what, so even though you're thinking, things going to turn around, maybe the odd one, but it looks like you said again, it looks like it's going to be those guys again, the GBs, the Cubans, those top guys, those top elite guys look like they're going to have to do it again. Now, the question is why, right? The question will be why, and then maybe we can talk about that at some stage. Maybe the programs that they have, the administration that they have, the development system that they have, because it's not a fluke that they're actually achieving those results at all. It's not a fluke. So even though, like we say, we might be rooting for all the African guys and the guys that we really, our hearts are with them. But the question is that, do we have the technique? Do we have the administration? Do we have the development to take us to that level?
I know we're going to be talking about boxing. I know you mentioned the fact that we, in a way, that there's this kind of like a distance between the so-called, permit me to use this word now, developing nations and obviously the advanced ones or the developed ones and what have you. But then we know in the past we used to have the Cubans, okay, that were like excellent at boxing. When it comes to amateur boxing, just forget about it. The Cubans are just going to rub your face in dirt. So far, I had a look at the boxing and the way Africans have been faring, especially this today. We only had, I think, about just one Algerian that actually won is about. That's Mohamed Humri, who beat Nalek Barrera Kobach from Venezuela in the light middleweight in the right round of 32. What is going on with Africa and boxing? Especially, let me now zero into Nigeria. And we used to have boxers come out of Nigeria. Back in the days, the Nojima Eguns, the Peter Koyikwachis, all them people that when you're going to Olympics or you're going to international competitions, definitely you're going to come back with a medal in boxing. Where did we get it wrong?
When you're talking about sports, really. So sports, really, you have to actually invest as well for you too. So whether you're going to the gym, you have to invest your time, you have to invest your money. And I think that's where we're using Nigeria as an example, or because I mean, for example, the nations that are doing well, the African nations. So you look at the top African nations in boxing right now. You're looking at the Algerians, the Moroccans. They have a good program. The administration is pretty good. So they're having a lot of their fighters actually qualify. So when you look at the guys that are qualifying for the Olympics from Africa, these guys are getting like 7, 6, 5 spots, while some other nations are getting 2 and 3. So you can automatically see that it's to do with the development system there that they have there. And then when it comes to Nigeria, funny enough, we did have a good program before, and that's why, like the names that you mentioned before, you had guys, even like the guys that went to Sydney Olympics and all that. And I think that's where we've gotten it wrong. I think a lot of the administration has just been terrible, to say the least. It's just been absolutely terrible, and it's very demoralizing for the fighters, for the boxers, because I'm in touch with a lot of boxers in Nigeria, and a lot of them are just really striving and trying to make it, but really you don't have any support from the bodies that are looking after them. So you have these guys who are just out there training, looking after themselves. They get injured, there's nobody to look after them. They go for competitions, and they know they're going to get paid some money, but they don't know when they're going to get paid. So they could go into a competition today and they're going to say, okay, we're going to give you X amount of money if you win gold or silver. And then 6 months down the line, nobody's saying anything to them, but forgetting that these guys are actually, even though they're amateurs, but the way they train in Nigeria, they train like full-time professionals. So they don't have any other jobs, And so when you do that now, you find that a lot of those guys who are very talented guys, the ones who are still hoping to make it, they're just living on hope. And then some guys they turn around and say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. But the thing is, they've invested so many years, and the thing is, they don't have any other skill. They don't have anything else to do. So really, it's a very, very sad situation, because one of the things I really do believe is that Nigerians have a serious amount of boxing talent, and that's why you see the guys that go over to America later on do very well. But at this level of the amateur side of things, definitely the administration of sports in Nigeria, definitely.
In the past, we used to have the Cubans come in to coach Nigerian boxers, especially when they were at the peak of boxing, especially amateur boxing in the world. As I'm talking about the Cubans, and it was really, really we could see the results, especially when we went to the Olympics in the 80s and 90s and whatever you. And suddenly that cooperation with Cubans just stopped, and we kind of lost the way. Is there any way we could probably come to terms or probably link up with some top boxing nations? You've mentioned the Algerians, the Moroccans, especially North Africans. They've got a very, very developed way of developing, advanced way of developing boxers, right from the amateur and from when they're actually young, both male and female. What is the secret that, or what can we learn from these North Africans? What kind of things can we learn from them and implement in Nigeria, aside obviously the issue of administrators not just getting it right?
Okay, I really, I mean, I don't think we can get away from the administration side of things, really, because when you actually look at it, when I started looking and getting in touch with a lot of the coaches in Nigeria, I was amazed to find out that Nigeria do have very talented coaches. I mean, like the guys who took Nigeria to the Olympics in 2000, all those guys are not just ordinary guys. These are guys who've actually represented Nigeria at Olympic Games before. And not only that, those guys actually used to go for training. So you have the coaches in Nigeria who train the national team. Maybe not these ones today, because there's no money to fund those guys. But what they had coaches from Nigeria who used to go for training courses out of the country. And not only that as well, Nigeria had a program where they would take fighters and take them to Cuba, and they would train in Cuba. They would take guys to Morocco, and they would stay there and train, right? And so what you have today is we're not having coaches go out to get trained properly, and then we're not having the fighters go on international competitions, and that's the only way you're going to get sharp. Like I was talking to a girl who's a girl I'm mentoring, Blessing Orakwe. She's silver medalist silver medalist at the Edo Games, and I sent out the girls who are going to be at her weight category in the Olympics, and they're not far off better than she is. But I said to her, you know what, these guys, so we were kind of analyzing boxing. I said, the only thing that's missing is that these guys right now are having a lot of international competitions, and you are not. So you're just fighting on a local level and you're training, but these guys are, they went to Dakar, right? Because we will talk about this later on. Nigeria did not qualify for the Olympics because they did not go to Dakar, right? Why did they go to Dakar is something that we could talk about. So Nigeria did not even go to the qualifying games. At Dakar, you have all the top African nations training and fighting one another. The best go to the Olympics. Different games like that. Nigeria is not going to those kind of games. So what you're doing is you're just a local champion, fighting on a local level. It's just like in football. It's like the third division playing the third division. You never go to the second, you never go to the first. And so that's what you have. So you have a lot of talented guys without money, without the training at that international level. What can you expect from these guys? So to answer your question, that's what we need to do. But then how do you do this without administration? So that means there has to be money. There have to be guys who put together a program and say, listen, we've got to go to Cuba, we've got to go to Morocco, we've got to go to these nations, we've got to get involved in all those games, right? So we can sharpen our tools and get good.
I want to bring in this example from basketball, and I know of about a group of people that came up and said, and form an organization or association called Friends of Basketball. What Solem is actually bringing out the best in Nigerian basketball and what have you. You've got lofty ideas. You're already at the moment mentoring a future, if I dare say, an Olympian. Um, what what support is out there that you can tap into and maybe sort of step aside those administrators out there that are just probably after one thing, probably their pockets or what have you, and probably just look into it and get the best out of the best from Nigeria, get them out there, even if it starts with some African countries and start, you know, prepping them up and at the end of the day qualify for, who knows, Commonwealth Games as a stepping stone, then Olympics. What plans have you got regarding that?
Okay, so from my side, I run a digital marketing business for boxers. Really, I'm really focusing on boxers. I wasn't really looking at Nigeria before, but I see that there's a gap in there. And so when I'm talking to like Blessing, for example, or I'm talking to some fighters, I say, you know what, you've got to look at it from a whole different perspective, right? You've got to, I mean, so for example, with Blessing right now, we're doing things like documentaries. We're doing content where we can actually highlight her skills and just bring her out as a person. So when I talk to the fighters in Nigeria, I say to them, you know, you've got to actually forget, and it's quite challenging because they can't think like that, right? But I'm saying, you know what, you've got to think outside the box, you know, because okay, they're frustrated and they know that okay, they're like, okay, there's nothing we can do, but they're just sitting down there waiting. And I'm saying, no, you know what, start creating events, start creating content, start doing things that get, because the world is global right now. So it's not just about staying in Nigeria, right? Get yourself out there on social media and do it the right way. Let people. So it's more than just boxing. When people bought Muhammad Ali, they didn't really buy him just because he was a fighter, because he could talk and there were different things to it. So that's what I'm saying to these guys. I mean, when you look at these Nigerian fighters, they are awesome. They are just absolutely awesome. And I say, you know what? Market yourself. Find things that you can do. Sell yourself on a daily basis. Try and talk to people. Try and showcase what you can do. And I believe with doing that, they can open the world to themselves. I mean, they don't have to stay amateur. Some of them may not have to stay amateur because it's probably not going to pay them, you know. But like for example, like Blessing, I said to her, in the next 1 year, give it a good shot, give it the best that you can. And when I'm saying that, I mean, if you're going to have fights, be at the top, be at your best, and also make sure that it's documented, right? So I'm saying document it yourself so that you have content that you can actually sell. Because one of the things you'll find right now, you can look at it and say, who are the best boxers in Nigeria at an amateur level? You wouldn't know, right? Because it's not even it's not documented. So we can't even read the reports. I mean, Blessing went into a tournament about a month or 2 months ago. It was called Next Rated, a very good program set up by a private body, and what their whole idea was to showcase the next talents for Nigeria who would go to the Olympics. Good idea. But one of the flaws to that was the fact that you can't read that anywhere. So the whole content and the whole thing just died in Nigeria. So it's like whatever you do, you got to sell it. You got to make some money. That's what I said about Muhammad Ali. He sold himself. So you've got whatever you're doing doesn't make any. I mean, and that's where I come in, because these guys are not going to be able to see it. So it takes a while, but I'm mentoring them. We're putting a few packages together. We're putting a few contents together, and we're looking at ways to distribute that, not just to the Nigerian scene. And I tell them, I say, think outside Nigeria. And the flip side to that is that when we start doing this, it's still content that we can still take back to the administrators in Nigeria and take back to private individuals, you know, private bodies, just people that are interested in sports in general, and they can go back into sponsorship. So really it's about marketing the fighter, making them exciting, getting content ready, and then you can build sponsorship, and then you can do other things.
Very interesting. So it just goes a long way to say preparing for major championship, Olympics, Commonwealth, or whatever you. There's still a lot that needs to be done behind the scenes, apart from you just training and perfecting your skills and all that. And we see that especially in the advanced countries. Nay, stay there. We're going to go on a short break, and when we come back, we're going to bring in our other friend Leslie. Leslie also is going to be talking about the Olympics, both boxing basketball and what have you. We're still going to be talking about that. So we're going to take a quick short break. When we come back, Leslie going to be joining us, and Leah, stay there. We'll be with you in a couple of seconds. Hi there, welcome back. It's still Tokyo 2020 Rewind. My name is Wale, and I've been having a lovely chat with Naya about boxing, looking at the Olympics as a whole, and obviously plans for getting Nigeria out of the doldrums of boxing, and not just Nigeria, but Africa. How we can improve on our boxing. Naya has been talking with me regarding that. I've also got with me joining us all the way from the United States, Leslie Corona. Leslie, thank you for joining us. I know you've been backstage listening to a little bit of what we've been talking about regarding the Olympics, and obviously zooming onto boxing. Tell me, Leslie, I think the first question I'm going to ask you now today, I'm sorry, Nay, I'm just going to digress a bit to basketball. Leslie, what happened to Team USA today, mate?
Yeah, Team USA is they're coming to terms with the fact that the game has gone global, and the talent level around the world is catching up to them. Obviously, it's no knock on them. It's just that the competition is stiffer now. Unlike years past when they were, the undisputed king of the jungle. So now you have the rest of the world, and thanks to the NBA, an American outfit, which has decided to take the game global. They've done a massive job, way better than FIBA, which is a global governing body, by the way. And just to digress and go into the conversation you were having with the gentleman just now, talking about the privatization of sports, which is what has benefited basketball globally. Because if it wasn't for the NBA, Africa would not have the Basketball Africa League. Africa would not have the talents that we have in the NBA right now. Left to FIBA, right? FIBA, just like most of our governing bodies in sports, they're full of politics, full of a lot of unfit people. I don't want to go out on a limb like that and call people unfit. But if that's what it takes to wake some people up, that's what it is, because it is what it is. They are. You can see the vast difference between what the NBA is doing and what FIBA is doing as an organization. In the NBA is $8 billion a year league.
Wow.
You compare that, $8 billion a year. Compare that to even FIFA, which is NBA with only 30 teams, right? 30 teams. What, $8 billion? And then you compare that to FIFA, which is a global governing body for football, right? It has over 200 member federations. And FIFA is only about $6 billion a year.
Wow.
That's a massive difference. So that gives you a deep insight into the way forward for sports in Africa. We have to take it to the private sector. There's no other way around that. The private sector is the only thing that's going to drive. The market forces are going to be the only thing that's going to drive sports in Africa. That's the only way forward. Otherwise, people will keep crying about this same old problem with, we're not doing too well here, we're not doing too well there. Every year, or perennially every 4 years, quadrennial, we'll come back to the same old story. It's going to be the same old story. Whilst, if you look at the United States, and I say this again, not to say United States is king of all things, but again, United States doesn't have a sports minister. We don't have those cumbersome organizations that kind of hinder the growth of sports. Sports is guided in built by also the market forces because it's a business. As the gentleman said in the beginning, sports is an industry, and if it's an industry, it's a business. If it's a business, then business got to drive sports. You know, yes, the governing bodies are going to be there to regulate this and regulate that and provide officials for officiating matches and referees. You know that type of stuff. That's all good. But in terms of growing the sport to any type of sport to where it needs to be, you need that type of environment, the private sector to come in and make a massive difference. And you know, of course, what we're involved in, you know, with Africa Sports Ventures Group, and this is this is our dream. This is our ultimate goal to see sports, period, across the board, grow across Africa and not be encumbered by the things that hinder them. So, coming back to basketball, the United States losing the day to France. Yeah, you look at France. Look at the talent level with the French guys. Pretty much the entire team is in the NBA, so you can tell the talent level they can compete. They're at the same level as the NBA guys, the United States guys, because they play 99 out. They play against the same guys 99 out. And Rudy Gobert, don't forget, was voted Defensive Player of the Year a year or so ago. And now and that's in the NBA. So when you look at that, you have guys like Tony Parker, who's of course is not, it's no longer as active, but he's a mentor for those guys. So they know the game, they know the business, and that's what Nigeria is heading to. Nigeria is right there at the cusp of greatness because Nigeria has the crop of players that Nigeria has right now. This year may not be the year that Nigeria really gets over the hump in terms of because of obviously coming into the Olympics, they were ranked fourth by these two teams, and of course Australia, which was ranked number one. So the point is, Nigeria is now hatching the monster it's going to be in the league, right? And in the world, that just league. So we have a lot of young players who are not even in the Nigerian team right now playing in the Olympics. They're in the NBA that were drafted this year in the NBA draft. All the players that were drafted in the NBA draft in 2020, were all Nigerians, all of them.
Wow.
Okay. So from Africa, all of them from Africa were from Nigeria. So that is what we'll say is you're about to waken a giant. But the point is, the governing body is not going to be the one that solves Nigeria's basketball problem. The private sector has to come in. The private sector, just like you were mentioning, Friends of Basketball, Nigerian basketball, they have to be more active than just Friends of Basketball providing funding here and there. There has to be much more beyond that. The privatization, and currently there's one team, Rivers United, which plays in the Rivers, which plays in the Basketball Africa League, which is a good step in the right direction. And I know the Basketball Africa League is eventually going to expand, and obviously there will be more franchises in Nigeria. Lagos will need to have one team. Obviously, in terms of the commercialization, because we have to look at the commercial factor. We're not just going to say, okay, Abuja needs one because Nigeria is a seat of power. No, we're not going to say that. We're going to look at the commercial aspect. Cities that would support the growth and development of a team. That's what we have to look at. So I think the future is bright. But coming back to USA basketball, USA just got caught with. The rest of the world is catching up to them. And I'm not going to knock them for losing. It's a wake-up call to them as well that, hey, you can't take teams for granted anymore. And the world is a different place now. That you are playing against your equals now. So you have to step up a notch or two. They still sit at the top of the roost. I'll say that because they have a talent base across the United States of multiple, millions of talents sitting out there. They're players and passionate about basketball. We are yet to develop a culture across Africa to develop the game of basketball. Because one thing you have, it's not just a talent. You have to have a culture. There has to be a culture of anything that you do for it to be appealing, not just to the folks who are going to turn on the TV and watch it, but also the youngsters who are going to get up every morning and feel like I got to pick up a basketball or I got to pick up a boxing glove and go to the gym, be passionate about it, that type of stuff. So you have to have that. So the culture is really critical to the growth and development of any sports, and to develop culture, you got to go all the way down to the grassroots and build it up, build it all the way up. There's no magic about that. No one can look. There are certain things we can say. You can leapfrog a stage or two in terms of development, but not sports. Sports, you got to go back to. You got to go from the very basic and build all the way up and come to where you need to be, because it's about talent development. It's about building somebody's physical ability for them to be able to do what they need to do. So I think that's what things stand. So USA lost. I don't think it's a surprise, because they lost a few games in the exhibition. And the exhibition they lost to Nigeria, which was a massive accomplishment by the Nigerian team, the first for an African nation to defeat the USA in basketball, which is great, which is a great story in itself. That story has to be told, and I like the way my fellow Mr. Ney was talking about a while ago about the issue of projecting through film documentaries and things like that, about projecting the game. We can all sit there and talk about the Olympics now, which is the hottest topic now in the world. Everybody's in their homes and watching the Olympics. But after the Olympics and the lights are dimmed and everybody goes home, what happens? What's the next step towards the next AfroBasket, the next BAL Basketball Africa League season, and all of that? How do we follow these players that have played for Nigeria and the other countries and that have come from Africa? So it's a continuous build-up. It's a continuous process. It's a continuous thing. The engagement. And let me give you a quick insight into the magic of the NBA. The NBA is an $8 billion league, $8 billion league, right? And the fact is that as much as they are as much as they are huge and big in the business, the NBA has never been complacent about marketing. They market relentlessly. I mean, every little corner they have something they came out with recently during the NBA playoffs called a mini movie. With every game that they played in the NBA finals, they come out with the next. They call a mini movie. They do a mini documentary like 5 to 10 minutes long, and they do that just to put out there to feed the fans, because the fans want this, And this is what we have a long way to go in Africa in terms of reaching that level of sophistication. But we know the drill. We know how it's done now. So it's not a surprise. It's not something that we have to go searching out for. The only thing is, with us who are more exposed, it's sometimes a bit of a difficult issue trying to project this to those who are our brothers and sisters on the continent, for them to understand that this is the way. This is the way to go. Kind of tying that with the Way show, right? The Way.
Thanks, Leslie.
Yeah. Right.
So, Ney, you listen to Leslie there, and he's talked about the culture, the fact that NBA is like relentless. They actually what the NBA is doing for basketball is actually far more than FIBA, the world body, is doing for basketball, especially what they're doing in Africa and also the rest of the world. Do we need to see this kind of investment, relentless marketing in in boxing or in other sports for Africa to wake up? Because the way it is now, the NBA is now shopping for the talent in Africa and drafting them into the league to make the league more popular, more interesting, more watchable, more monetizing it. Giannis is at another thing in NBA at the moment. So do we need FIBA, for example, to now do what NBA is doing to wake up Africa and get our talents out there?
Definitely. I mean, so going back to boxing, just like what Leslie said, I was just looking at it right now. So today was not a very good day in boxing. I think we had about, let me see, I think we had probably had 6 people boxed today, right? And we lost a whole load of them. And I was just looking at it and I'm thinking, so these guys have worked what 3, 4 years to get to the Olympics, right? And they're not going to the next round. And Leslie said something. What next, right? So you're out of the games. You're going back to Africa. What's happening? There's no marketing. No one's gonna pick you up. You know, there's nobody's gonna talk about you again. So it's like, what are you gonna do next? And really, it doesn't have to be like that because not everybody's going to win. You have about 200 and something boxers in the Olympics, right? You're going to have only about 13 people pick up gold, a few pick up. So you're going to have a handful of people. Maybe out of 286 people, you're going to have, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 medalists. So what happens to the other 200? Are they not good? So the question is, to answer the question, there needs to be something they're going to go back to. Because my thing is, and that's what really gets me excited about boxing, right? Doesn't matter who you are. As long as you can get into the boxing ring, I just believe that you have a story to sell. You have a story. Everybody has a story because everybody's an individual. So tell us your story. Tell us the story. So you're looking at a girl in, there's a girl in Uganda. She's the first girl to box in the Olympics for Uganda. That's a story. Let's celebrate that story. Let's tell it. There was another girl who's fighting. I think she's from Congo, right? She had a baby at 12 years old. Her mom had to look after her baby. She's at the Olympics now, right? Because of the whole thing, she may not go as far. She probably got, I think she got stopped in her first. She didn't go to the next round. But you know what? That's the story that could have been told. A girl who turns her life around, was 12 years. That's the thing we could have documented. You know, so there's so many different stories. And we're better to tell these stories but Africa. So one of the things I was telling Blessing, I said, you know what? So we were looking at some content from America. We're looking at Floyd Mayweather and looking at Adrian Broner and everything. So I said, you know what? We're telling our story, but we're not telling our story from the glossy lifestyle because you don't have that. So let's tell the story that we have. She lives in Ojo, right? And she travels from Ojo to Ropak in Nigeria, which is in Lagos, which is 2 hours away. She gets up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, okay, that's a story for us. Let's document. Let's film you getting up in the morning, going. So how are you traveling there? Oh, I get on a bus. Okay, we're gonna film you on the bus ride. You know, let's tell this story to the world because that's what people want to see. You know, when she went to this other tournament, and I was talking to her and I said, okay, so how are you coping in the tournament? What are you eating? Oh, I eat ogi, I eat pap. I'm like, oh, okay, so what do you eat in the afternoon? Well, I eat rice. And how much do you spend? I spent 800 naira. So I'm thinking, everybody thinks when you're in camp in America or in the UK, you're eating proper camp food. Like in the NBA, you're eating a good meal. But hey, that's not how it is in Africa. You're sitting down in some funny place eating. So let's document that and let's sell that to the world because it's a story. So we have to find a way to tell our story, right? We need to sell that story. That story sells to the average African who probably is in the diaspora. And then beyond that, it sells to the world because it's a human story. And we want to find out the story of you coming from where you are, making it to the next level. So there's so many stories that are not hidden, and we need to tell those stories. And so to answer your question, yes, we do need organizations like that. We do. I mean, they're not going to be organizations. They're just private companies, marketing companies. But until this thing, people will get on board once it starts generating that kind of storyline. You know, because I said everybody has a story to tell. It's how you tell the story. And once you tell the story properly and you get people hooked and they're getting more and more of it, that's where we now have an industry.
We know we all have a story to tell. Again, will it be the sportsmen and women's fault they are not telling their stories? Or will it be that colleagues in the media business are just too lazy looking for these stories? Or is it that people don't just care about the story? We only want to hear about what's happening in LeBron James's life. We want to hear what's happening in Ronaldo's life. We want to hear what's happening in Simone Biles' life. And when it comes to Africa and all them ones, no, we don't want to hear about it. Where do you think the problems come from?
Really, I think, times have really changed. Just like Leslie was saying, times have changed. So really, you know, we're now digital, right? We're not doing print paper anymore, right? So who's got time to read print? I don't want to sit down there reading print paper, right? I don't have that time. So I want you to give in 2 or 3 minutes, capture my imagination. Tell me your story in 2 minutes because I'm going to the next story. And that's what's happening with these old journalists. And they're not being creative, they're being lazy, you know, and they just want things. So they've not really moved with time. And so they've just ended up being dinosaurs. So it's not that the stories are not there. We just need new people thinking in a different light, using technology to tell the story and move it across. So we're not going to be doing the same old. I'm not interested in print. You know, it takes too much time and everything. All I want to do is tell my story, do my edit, move on. Because it's Instagram, it's instant. We're looking at it right now, and I'm forgetting you. If I don't see you tomorrow, I've forgotten you already. So tell me your story. Just keep pumping the stories out, and that's what we need. So we need to have a different culture, a new culture, embrace technology, be creative, be open-minded, and go with the flow.
Leslie,
Yeah.
at the moment, we've just got Tunisia. Tunisia, obviously, the top ranked African country on the medals list. I know it's been early. It's just 2 days into the Olympics. Would you agree with what Naya just said about selling our stories and what happens when a competitor, a sportsman, sportswoman don't do well at the Olympics and that person just decides to go back home to Africa and that's it. Everyone's forgotten about that person. Should we be doing more with supporting our sportsmen and women to achieving uh, what they should achieve? I'm talking when I say we now, I'm talking about us in the media space. Forget about the administrators now because we all know what it is with them. But should we, as media personalities or media practitioners, be doing more with regards to projecting our athletes out there?
Uh, that's a major issue. It's a serious issue. But my take on it, having been in the media space myself as a business till recently, when we decided to come together with a few of my compatriots in the space and other folks in the business came together, put together African Sports Ventures Group. The very thing we're talking about right now is why we came together and created African Sports Ventures Group. Because the problem is that you have a very lackluster space, not because people don't want to do the job media-wise, right? But because we have a supportive environment, the ecosystem is very poor, right? So you don't have a lot of it's like pulling teeth to get advertising, right? Just to cover advertising. I'll tell you a quick give a little segue story to that. I went to a local African food store here in Texas and spoke to the gentleman. The wife was all happy about it. She it's like, okay, we can do business with you and that type of stuff. And the husband came around like, and he asked how much is it a month? And I told him, given what we do and how much I cover and all this stuff, because basically my thing is I've been covering to support my media. I've covered out of my pocket. I mean, at one time I had up to 30 people on my roster, and everything was coming out of my pocket, literally. I mean, not that we didn't have a business model to sell. It's just the fact that, like I say, and this gentleman came and I told him, said, "Oh no, that's too much. I can't, I can't afford that kind of stuff, and I can afford this much, which like $100 a month, $100 a month, right? And I can afford that for advertising across the spectrum, which was on the website, on the social media platforms, as well as on the digital magazine we have, right?" I said, "What in heaven's name will give you that kind of price for that much of stuff?" I said, so I sat there for a minute. It hit me, and I mean, it really hit me hard. The one that tipped it for me was the Houston Marathon. Been covering them for years. Finally, I had this discussion with them for them to do something about, a partnership where to project the African stars that are coming out every year today. Okay, let's talk about some remuneration for my services, right? and projecting these young men and women in the Houston Marathon out there. Oh, well, they don't do advertising. They don't do this. They can talk to some of their partners. And I say, you know what? That's the problem right there. I mean, how can you survive? How can the media house survive by trying to beg for pittance? You know what I mean? I mean, so if you look at that and you look at the situation, we struggle in Africa in that space. We don't own, I mean, for those of us who own media, it's almost as you literally have to be a multi-millionaire. And not only that, it's hard to relate to the other businesses in Africa. You see the Dangotes of the world, they advertise with CNN, but they wouldn't advertise with a local media company.
Sure.
I mean, come on now. And you call yourself trying to be supportive? I mean, how do we grow Africa? How do we develop Africa if you're going to take your dollars out to somewhere else where they already have billions of dollars anyway? I mean, come on. Let's be realistic on this. And you got other outside companies that are coming into the continent, and they don't see the value in what we do because obviously we're not projecting what they want to see. You know, then now you're not projecting La Liga in Spain, or you're not projecting the French League or the English Premier League, or those who project the English Premier League. That's the focus. Is that developing Africa? Is that supporting our athletes? You know, we have very few people, very few guys in the English Premier League. So if you look at the ecosystem, it tells you the story, right? So finally, we decide, okay, well, it's time to go to business ourselves. We have to go into the business environment ourselves to raise the dollars that we need to support media, period. Because there's no way you can project sports without media. There's no way you can project media without the dollars behind it. So it's a catch-22. There's no way you can come out of that without one of those, aspects given. Given. I can understand the issue with the digitalization. I mean, the digitization of sports or media, getting content out there through Instagram and so on and so. All those young men and women who are so-called social media influencers who are doing all these videos and so, they need to be paid. I mean, yeah, some of them do it because it feels good to do it out of ego. Some of them do it because, but how much are they making out of that? And to be honest with you, after a while, it gets tiring. And after a while, they're going to give it up. They're not going to be there in a sustainable fashion for the long haul. So you need a solid system that backs up the support of sports media in Africa. And who's championing their cause, if not us? We have to champion that cause. There's no other way around it. I mean, trust me, I've gone up and down, in and out, done all the research through the years to come to this point. And if we cannot handle the bull or tackle the bull by the horns ourselves, it ain't happening. We're going to continue. And these young men and women, their stories are going to be hidden in some corner because we have to be able to project it, not just inside Africa, but like you said, to the rest of the world. Where's the bullhorn that we need to project to the rest of the world? Where's the media space? African News, which is another channel, was a media channel that's out there that is kind of competing with BBC and CGTN. These are all foreign owned. African News is a French-owned entity. BBC is a British-owned entity. CGTN is Chinese. Where are we? Super Sports in South Africa, it doesn't, they do what they can, but you know what? At the end of the day, they got to look out for South Africa first. And they got to look out for their bottom line, which is how they make money and project. What do they project? How much are they willing to sacrifice to help to lift up the rest of the sports space in Africa? So that's a loaded question, and it has a loaded answer. So my thing is, we have a lot to do to build an ecosystem of people who are in sport. Sadly enough, over the years, our sportsmen and women who were making money, they never saw the value in investing back in sports in Africa. They take their dollars elsewhere. I was just talking about that the other day with my son. Even currently, like some of the NBA stars, right? They invest in Silicon Valley companies. And we know that the diversity level in Silicon Valley companies is at least a 1% investment in black-owned tech companies in Silicon Valley. So to me, is somebody examining their conscience as to why am I putting my money into all these other companies out there that are now there's no diversity, there's no black-owned companies out here that I can put my money into? But this is not about race. Let me make it clear. It's not about race, but it's about supporting your community where you're from, right? The Andre Iguodala's of this world, guys like that who got money, where they have money to invest in Silicon Valley companies. It's their money, yes. I don't deny that. But at the end of the day, I mean, obviously, I know their conscience pricks them somewhere. When the lack of opportunity in their communities and the poverty level across the board, both in the diaspora and in Africa, tells a huge story. It tells a huge story. So how much vested do these guys feel for them to say, I want to give back? And you're not giving back just to spend because you want to give money away, like charity. You're investing. It's an investment. Invest in African companies. Invest in black-owned companies. Sports, media companies that can help to project and tell African stories, black stories in the diaspora. You know, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in America, it's in Canada, or it's in South America. With Brazil having the largest black population outside of Africa. You know, how many times do we know about Pele? That's about it, right? I mean, the black athletes out of Brazil that people can actually pinpoint and talk about outside of Pele, right? So that's our issue. That's our issue. We have to find a way to lift the media space in Africa, like what you're doing right now. What you guys have been doing with the Way Show. Massive job, amazing job. But where are the corporate entities to back up the Way Show? You know,
they're on CNN and the Al
there you go. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? But you're doing the actual job of projecting it out there. Actually, we're actually sitting here talking about the Olympics and talking about African athletes. We're not just talking about it on like it's some afterthought. It's not an afterthought. To us, it's the focus. He's talking about boxing. I'm talking about basketball. We're talking about the Olympics, period. We're talking about Africa at the Olympics. Where's the support?
Well, I think we just got about 3 minutes to round up. Naya, what should we be looking at as we progress in the Olympics? Do you see Africa doing pretty well in this Olympics? Boxing, basketball, whatever, swimming, wrestling, and everything. What's the future, immediate future in this Olympics for Africa?
For me, I think that's a very good question. I was just thinking about what Leslie was saying there, and I've been in boxing so as a boxing fan, and then been in boxing, I'd say about 30 years, right? And this is the first time that I'm actually focusing on Africa in boxing. I'm not interested in boxing. And when I look back and say, why am I not interested? Because information is just very hard to find. So right now, I think with the digital world and everything right now, there's a lot of interest. I can actually look for information and find things a lot easier. And I think when you look at a lot of people that are coming through right now, the Nigerian wrestler, the Nigerian basketball team, we've not really heard about we've not had this kind of atmosphere before. So I think, I'm not sure if they're that good, but at least they're in our faces right now. We never really used to think about, so we just knew about football before, athletics. So right now, this is the first time I'm actually even hearing about Nigeria, and we actually have a gold prospect in Nigeria, in wrestling. So I'm not sure if it's because of the level, or maybe it's just that we have a lot more news going around now with the digital space. But I don't think we're going to see that much difference, to be honest. I don't think we're going to see, in terms of winning medals and everything. I think, for example, the Nigerian basketball thing, I think we're kind of like growing something good for the future. We might win something in gold. Athletics, are we going to see anything different? Nigeria has always done fairly well. Boxing, I think, like we said before, the Cubans, the British people, those top guys, the Russians, they're going to come back. The people from Uzbekistan, they're going to come back. So it's the same old story. So we haven't really changed much. So in terms of what are we going to achieve, I don't think we're going to do anything extraordinary. I think we're just going to probably achieve Run about the same kind of results, but maybe on the line, underneath, we're probably building something. Probably, maybe not the sports federations, but I think maybe the minds of people around are probably opening. So we may be able to be, for example, like the Friends of Nigeria now, and so I think underneath maybe the commercial side, the privatization side, we're probably going to be doing something, and we're probably going to be building and looking and saying we're going to take things out of the sports bodies. I think that's what I see happening.
Leslie.
Yeah. Well, I kind of concur with what Nate is saying, because obviously I think we got another. What I feel is, at the end of the day, is I think we now know what to do in terms of enhancing the private sector. The private sector in sports has to grow. And with that, I believe there is opportunity to support and grow different disciplines across Africa from the private sector, and that could bode well for, say, not in the short term, but maybe in the medium to long term. 2028 Olympics in LA, 2032 Olympics in Brisbane, Australia. Those ones we could see massive, sort of like a coming out party, in a sense, after hopefully we would have grown the private sector up to a decent level. Boxing in Africa, like you said, for me, I interviewed the new head of boxing for the IBA. I had a one-on-one with him, and obviously one of the things he has asked me to hold him to account for is the fact that he promised boxing academies across the different continents. Now, when it comes to Africa, with a boxing academy in Africa, where are you going to locate it at? So I think that's something that they're still debating. But now just an academy, but we need tournaments, we need events to keep our boxers busy, our fighters busy, to make them competitive, and not just keep them busy, but give them, pay them living wages that they can make them feel like they can get up every day and feel happy to go to the boxing ring and duke it out. So, well, basketball is a different story, because now we have a solid foundation with the Basketball Africa League and the NBA, not just NBA Africa anymore, but NBA itself actually coming out and saying they're investing fully in Africa. Not just with the Basketball Africa League. This was more recently, So there's a whole lot more that they're seeing that they want to do, and we are also working along that angle to help to grow what we call the grassroots level of the sport, because that's what needs to be done now. We're not talking about the helicopter approach from the top. We're talking about grassroots. You got boots on the ground type of stuff where you really have to have people engage. For example, we have a basketball program, African Sports Ventures has a basketball program that we're hoping to launch sometime in the not too distant future, that we're working with the school system. We'll call it Project 144, where that's where you need to go grow the game before it can grow at the intermediate, which is collegiate level, and then of course the professional level. Now we're not thinking about just shipping talents out to America for the NBA. We really want to see the Basketball Africa League grow as a unique and standalone league and become a multi-billion-dollar entity that will employ hundreds of thousands of people across Africa. That's what we want to see. It's easy to say, oh yeah, talents will go to America and play for the New York Knicks and all that stuff. No, we want to see the Basketball Africa League actually thrive, expand, grow, and be something, because this is about opportunity. We have to stop people from drowning in the Mediterranean. We have to stop people from, using fake identities to go overseas and live on this guys not being themselves, and just why? I mean, somewhere it has to stop. So those are the things that we're about. It's about coming back and helping to grow. And so with the results from this Olympics, I think it's going to be the usual thing, athletics. But in terms of the other areas, we still got ways to go. We still got work to do. And like Nate just said earlier about boxing, today's result wasn't good. So, and that tells a story. It tells a huge story, and that's a story that's going to continue to be the case going forward. So, fingers crossed. We wish all the athletes out there the best, and let them continue to fight and do their best. But at the end of the day, that story doesn't change without support. That story doesn't change without the right people in the right place to help grow sports and disciplines. And we cannot do it by always looking outside. Say we got to export our talents outside. We got to grow within. We have to grow within. We have to develop our local ecosystem within Africa and grow it. That's the only way forward. So that's it for me.
Massive thanks to you, Leslie, and it's a huge job, even trying to find stories about Africans in the Olympics nowadays. Even if you go to Olympic.com, you hardly find stories. All you see that flashes in front of you are obviously the angles from the West, and you have to really dig deep. And if you haven't got contacts in these various African Olympic federations, you ain't got nothing, about your African teams. And we've said it all today. It's so hard, especially us in the media space, getting those news about what is happening in the African camps and getting it to people wanting to know. So well, I want to thank you so much, Leslie and Naya, for coming in today. Special thanks to all those that have been watching us. I've got someone that's watching us for the first time today. Anthony, thank you for joining us. You have also said congrats to Olympics, the Tunisian winning team and the 400 meters swimming and making Africa proud. Thank you so much. And Anthony also said the commentary about from BBC about the African and lesbian very unprofessional. Tell me about it, Anthony. We will try to do what we can, to bring you what we can about the African continent, especially with regards to our teams in the Olympics and subsequent sporting competitions around the world. If the BBC can't do that for Africa, if the CNNs, the Al Jazeera's, whatever you can do it, we try as much as possible to do what we can to bring you those news. Obviously, if we can't, to offer solutions on to how we can improve as especially this media space with regards to Africa. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. To Bumi and Prince Macworld, Jamali Macworld, who happens to be the Secretary General of the World Tourism Council. He's going to be joining us sometime this week, where we're obviously going to be talking about the Olympics. We're also going to be talking about world sports tourism. Okay, he's going to be joining us on what Africa stands to benefit. Since he is the Secretary General, what Africa stands to benefit from being a member of that world body, that's the World Sports Tourism, and what they think about the Olympics so far. Tomorrow I'm going to be back here. We're going to still be talking about the Olympics. It's not done yet. Africa is emerging. I've got the Tunisians to thank for that we are present in the medal table. It's just day 2. And we still have a long way to go. Africans are still there in boxing, in swimming, in wrestling, in other sports. Athletics is also to come, starting from the 30th of that's February. So actually, that's Friday. So athletics is going to start Friday. So stay tuned to us, okay? We try as much as possible to bring you what's been happening at the Olympics, the review, where we need to go from here as an African continent, and what we need to do to get it right. Okay, so that's Tokyo 2020 Rewind, the first edition on day 2, coming out from TWAYMedia. Special thanks to my friend and colleague who is behind the scene, making sure that you can hear me, you can see me. His name Yomi Omabweja, who is the producer of this program, and also special thanks to Leslie, all the way from the United States, Texas, precise, joining us today, and also to Naya Shomi, who is here in England. Thank you for your insight into boxing. We'll be catching up tomorrow to talk more about boxing. Thank you so much for your time. To everyone that's watched us today, thank you. Have a great week ahead, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.